Hello, my name is Nicole Watson, and I am so excited to share my first tutorial for Shawn Petite's creative team with you. Today I'm creating a canvas inspired by fall, Shawn stencils and ephemera packs, along with a little personal message to myself about trusting my own wings. So, grab your supplies and join me. I started off by playing with several of Shawn's ephemera packs on this 6x6 pre-gessoed canvas. I also added a couple layers of my own gesso to the canvas as well. I struggled for a little bit trying to decide if I really wanted to rip up this piece of paper and use it, and then I thought to myself, hey, I can just print this again. This is the beauty of Shawn's ephemera packs. So here I am with confidence putting this piece of paper down on my canvas, knowing that I can use it again in a future project, and I know I will because I absolutely love all of the colors of this piece of paper, along with all of these awesome ledger sheets that she provides. So here I am just playing. I'm gluing them down with matte medium, putting matte medium on the front and the back of the papers, and also remembering to wrap it around the sides of my canvas. And then I also grabbed some of my own dictionary paper to kind of soften the edges and add some text here and there to this front of this canvas until I'm happy with the results, and then move on to the next step. So then I cut out 3 butterflies from another ephemera pack and placed them on the front of my canvas. I knew I wanted to use this mandala stencil and didn't want the mandalas to hide the butterflies, so I put it on top of my canvas and arranged my butterflies before I was brave enough to put them on the front of my canvas. So I did the same process with matte medium on the front and the back of those butterflies. Next, I grabbed a sheet of some old rub-ons and added some of those to the front of the canvas for another layer of texture. If you don't have rub-ons, you can use stickers, some larger print from another book, or even just a marker and draw some numbers on the front. Then I decided I needed to kind of tone down that canvas a little bit and also add a different texture to the front so that when I use paint next, it'll cling onto the canvas in different places in different ways. And so I added some watered down gesso to the front and the sides of my canvas here and there to push that ephemera back and also to add that extra layer of texture. Then I grabbed one of my favorite supplies, the Stabilo All Pencil, to add some shadowing and shading around these butterflies to make them pop away from the canvas a little bit more. I like this because it's water soluble, so after I drew those lines around the butterflies, I grabbed a paintbrush and some water and activated that pencil mark to add some more shadows and kind of soften those edges a little bit. You could do the same thing with watercolor, charcoal, or any other water soluble medium. And then since it was wet, I added some more of that in, and you can see how it's darker, and I continued to play until I was happy with how the shadowing looked. I had a lot of things going on in my head when I was creating this canvas, so I kind of took a moment to dump some of those thoughts on the front of the canvas with another Stabilo All Pencil. This one is the graphite color. It just gave me a moment to pause and think and write down how I was feeling. Then I began to add layers of color with these golden high flow acrylics. I grabbed all different colors of fall, reds, yellows, browns, and put them on the front of my canvas, sprayed them a little bit so they'd drip down, and just continued to layer color until I was happy with it. It wasn't dark enough, so then I eventually grabbed the darker sepia color and let that also drip down on the front of the canvas. I wiped away any of the drips that got on the front of those butterflies because I didn't want those to push the butterflies to the background. I wanted the butterflies to stay in the front. So I continued this process until I was happy with how the colors turned out, and then moved on to the next step. You'll see I even tried to encourage the dripping once in a while by knocking my canvas on my table. With all of that color, those butterflies were starting to look dull, and so I grabbed the teal of the Golden High Flow, watered it down even more just to bring out the teal of those butterflies a little bit more, and painted it on the front of those butterflies. And then I decided that I wanted to add some of that teal in other places on the canvas, so I splattered it on the front, and then eventually also dripped it down a little bit on the front, and also placed it on the sides of the canvas here and there to spread that teal color throughout. So at this point I was kind of feeling the background needed another element, so I grabbed Shawn's old type text stencil and randomly stenciled different letters on the front and the sides of the canvas with carbon black acrylic ink and this round, I can't think of what it's called, round stenciling tool to the front of the canvas. And you don't really see them in the end, but you do see the ones on the side, and you kind of see them through. I didn't think about where my mandalas were going to be placed, and I might have done it a little bit differently if I do this again, but I do like the effect of those large letters on the front of the canvas. So when I was happy with the background, I grabbed my light molding paste and the mandala stencils and spread the molding paste through the stencils just really evenly, like you're frosting a cake, and lifted it up. And then since the mandalas kind of ended abruptly on the edges, I just spread that molding paste a little bit on the edges so it looks like the mandala spilled over. And then after it dried, I began the glazing process. Now I just wanted to put the glaze in the mandala area and on the edges of the canvas because I wanted to kind of grunge up those mandala areas. So if you haven't glazed before, you're going to kind of do about 75% glaze and about 25% of the color. Spread it on the area of your canvas. Don't be nervous, and then wait a minute or two for it to semi-dry, and then you wipe it off with a baby wipe. And you're going to need several baby wipes for this process. As you wipe it away, grab a new one, and you'll enjoy the results. I had some of that glaze mixture left over, and I decided the edges of the canvas needed to be just a little darker, so I just used my finger and spread it around the edges a little bit. As I was wiping away the glazing, I noticed a spot on the top of the canvas that had a dark patch from that high flow that I had put of the sepia, and so I continued to put that dark area around the edges of my canvas. I grabbed that sepia high flow and put it in different spots on the edges of my canvas to even out that look. Next, it was time to color my mandalas. I've sped up this process quite a bit here on the tutorial so that you could see it really quickly. I just layered the blues and the greens and copper with the different tools here with the pan pastels, and there was really no reason or method to my madness. I just kept layering until I was happy. I wanted it to kind of look patinaed or rusty, like these mandalas had been on the canvas for a while and had weathered some storms. And so I started with the blue, added some green, added the copper, hid it away in my trash can a few times to knock off the extra pastel dust, and just continued until I was happy with the results of that hopefully patina look on the front of my canvas, and I was, and you can see how wonderful it looked here by layering those colors. Then I sprayed it with 2 coats of this pastel fixative before moving on to the next step. So that black shadowing or shading around my butterflies had become a little muddled, so I repeated the process here with that Stabilo all pencil, and I also drew some antenna on the butterflies because I was not brave enough to cut those out and knew I could draw them in later. And so here I just continued to add that shading, And then I decided I wanted a little bit more white, so I watered down some gesso, flaked it, or splattered it on the front of the canvas, and then painted it some in here and there. It kind of gave that more of that worn look to the front of the canvas. I grabbed the teal again to bring out those butterflies a little bit more, and also added a few teal splatters to the front of the canvas. So I spent several minutes looking through these words and also some phrases to put on the front of the canvas. Suddenly, these words popped out to me: trust your wings. So I added them to the front of the canvas and then put a little bit of layer of matte medium on the top of them to make sure that they were secure to the canvas. At this point, I was pretty sure I was finished with the canvas. However, looking back after I was finished, I did add a couple splatters of black paint off camera, and you can see that in the up-close photos that follow. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel, and be sure to check out Shawn's blog for all the supplies and links to her stencils and ephemera packs. Thank you again so much for watching.